Okay, hi guys. Today we are doing 1.3, which is adding rational numbers. As you can see, your homework is on page 16. You're doing numbers 1 through 39 odd and 47 through 55 odd. Okay, so I only wrote odd at the end, but they're all odd. Our objectives today, we are going to add signed integers and rational numbers. And we're going to identify and apply the properties of addition. So first thing, let's think back and remember that an addend plus an addend is a sum. It does not matter if that's a positive number or negative numbers. Okay, anytime we're adding two numbers, they're considered addends. All right, so example one says add the following numbers with the same sign. Okay, so this is a positive 3 and this is a positive 2 is what they're saying. They both have the same sign. So 3 plus 2 equals 5. On B, they both have a negative to them. So we're adding numbers with the same sign. So because they're the same, a negative 1 plus a negative 3 equals a negative 4. Okay. Remember, I always encourage you to circle your answer so it's easy for you to find as well as it's easy for me to find. All right. Then in example 2 says add the following combos of positive and negative numbers. Okay. So hopefully, maybe you have some things to help you with that, some tricks. It might be to use a number line. So say you're at 0, 1, 2, 3 on your number line. So maybe you start at 3 on your number line and you go back negative 2. So 1, 2. To get your answer is a positive 1. Maybe you think about having 3 positives and having 2 negatives because it's negative 2. And then a positive and a negative equals 0. So those kind of equal 0 and you have 1 positive left as your answer. So again, your answer is 1 positive. So we'll talk about that some more in class and see how you guys are doing, but maybe that's the case. So if we have negative 7 plus positive 5, we have to make sure we're paying attention to this negative sign. And so negative 7 is plus 5 is negative 2. And there's 2 more negatives than there are positives. I will oftentimes use the positive and negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 negatives. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positives. And then I will say, again, a negative and a positive equals 0, or they cancel. And I'm left with 2 negatives. Okay, if you get stuck with addition and subtraction. All right, so let's move on. We've got adding positive and negative numbers. So if our addends have the same sign, okay, you might want to highlight that. We're looking if they have the same sign. Then we add the absolute values of the addends and we give the sum the sign of the addends. Okay, so it doesn't matter if they're positive or negative. If they're the same, it's going to keep that sign. Now, when we have different signs, okay, so again, you might want to highlight that, put a box around it. You subtract the smaller absolute value. It has to be the absolute value from the larger absolute value. You're like finding the difference between the two. And you give the difference the sign of the addend with the larger absolute value. That's another way to think about it. Okay. So let's do A. A falls in the category of they have the same sign. So we add the absolute values. So what's 1 plus 3? Well, that equals 4. And so then we give the sum the sign of the 2. They both had a negative. So this is a negative 4. Okay, with the addends of the different signs. Okay, so B and C. It says subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value. So here's the deal. The absolute value here is 8, and this one is 3. So 8 minus 3 equals 5. Then we say give the difference the sign of the add-in with the larger absolute value. The 8 has the larger absolute value, and it's a positive. So this equals positive 5. All right, if we look at 4 and 10, okay, the absolute value of 4 is 4. If the absolute value of negative 10 is 10. So here we would do 10 minus 4, which would equal 6. And if we're giving the sign of the larger absolute value, 10 was the larger absolute value. It had a negative sign. So the answer is negative 6. Again, if you like the positive and negatives, here we have 4 positives. It's just doing the same thing. And we have 6 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, 10 negatives. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Our answer was 6. Okay. The positive and the negatives cancel each other out, and that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they are negatives. So negative 6. Okay. There's a fun little quote there. If there's no sign in front of a number, assume the number is positive. Always, always, always. And then there's a little smart aleck guy over here. It says this number has a sign in front of it. It must be a negative number. Ha ha, because it's a sign. Math humor. Gotta love it. I don't know that I'd say that's math humor, though. Okay. Let's try the ones with decimals. Example 4 down there. Okay. The same rules apply, okay, with our decimals as what we just did before. So let's look at we have a negative number and no sign. So it means it's a positive. Okay. So we're going to look at the absolute values. 112.6 is the absolute value here, and 39.27. So we're going to subtract those. I'm going to put in my imaginary 0 there, right? So that we can subtract them. And 112. So you would borrow, do all your things, right? Because we can't do 0 minus 7. So 10 minus 7 is 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. Bring down my decimal. I have to borrow again. 12 minus 9 is 3. 0 minus 3, I have to borrow again. 10 minus 3 is 7. So 73.33. But then we have to remember, which one had the larger absolute value? This one did. So my answer is going to be negative 73.33. You can also box your answers in. Doesn't have to be in circle. Okay, let's look at B. All right, we have a negative and a negative. So that means that we are going to add them together, right? We're going to add their absolute values and give them a negative sign. So let's do that. 2.39 plus 14.682. And so again, our imaginary 0. 2, 9 plus 8 is 17. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 6 is 10. Bring down our decimal. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, and we have 1. And again, our signs were negative for both of these. So it's negative 17.072, or negative 17 and 72 thousandths. Okay. I hope you're feeling okay. Hopefully it's a little bit of review. All right, C, we're going to do the same thing with fractions. Okay, so we have 3/4 plus 1/12. We have to get common denominators to add our fractions. So I'm going to multiply this by 3/3. So then we have 9/4 plus, 9/4. Who am I kidding? 9/12 plus 1/12. Okay, they both are positive. So 9/12 plus 1/12 is 10/12. And I told you guys that I am fine with improper fractions, but they do need to be reduced. If or any fraction needs to be reduced in order to for me to accept it. So this one is proper, but it does need to be reduced. So that would be reduced to 5/6 because both of those numbers can be divided by 2, right? All right, and D. 3 30-seconds plus negative 5/8. All right, so here, right, we have no sign, so it's a positive, and here we have a negative. Again, to add our fractions, we need common denominators. So we could have a common denominator of 32, which means we need to multiply each of these by 4. All right, so 3 30-seconds plus a negative 20 30-seconds. Okay, and then again, we're looking at this positive and the negative, and we're finding the difference between them. So that would be 17 30-seconds, and our negative 20 30-seconds, it has the larger absolute value. So our answer here is negative 17 30-seconds. Okay. Remember, you guys can pause if you need. Just say something to pause, and feel free to go back and do that. All right, so then let's look at some mathematical properties. What is a mathematical property? Well, it's an equation or a statement that is true for any value of the variable. Okay, it can be true for any value of the variable. I'm going to straighten this up. So we have the commutative property of addition. Okay, so you'll notice that A and B, right, switch places to be B plus A. So they switch places. That's our commutative property. Associative property of addition is when what's in our parentheses changes. We did have A plus B in the parentheses. Now we have B plus C in the parentheses. Additive identity property is when we add 0 to any number, it just stays that number. And the additive inverse property is when we add the opposite number. So we have A plus a negative A, and it will equal 0. Okay. Okay, so additive identity is going to equal 0. So in example 5, we would like to add these numbers. So we might have to, we're going to have to use some order of operations. Let me move up a little bit here. So we'll keep our properties of addition so we can kind of see those. All right, and let's add. Okay, the nice thing about this is if we look, all of these are addition in here, right? Plus, 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 plus. So we don't have to worry about order of operations and doing different operations. We just have to do these. And order of operations says we go from left to right, which is accurate, but we could also use the commutative property or the associative to move some of these around to make life a little bit easier. So if we think about some ways that we can do that, okay, maybe we want to put all of our negatives together, right? So -1, -3, -7, and -6. So let's move them around. So we have -1 plus -3 plus -7 plus -6. And then we have plus 5 and plus 4. So we just applied that commutative property, so we could think about that. Now, if we would like, we can use the associative property to group these together. So we can go ahead and add all of the negatives, and then we can add all of our positives together. So -1 plus -3 is -4. -4 plus -7 is -11. -11 plus -6 is -17. Okay, so we've got -17 there. Plus 5 plus 4 is a positive 9. All right, so now we're down to one negative number, -17, and one positive number, 9. So we're looking at which one has the greater absolute value, 17. So 17 is bigger. So what's 17 minus 9? It is 8. And since 17 is bigger and it has a negative sign, okay, we're going to give 8 the negative sign for our answer. Now, you don't have to regroup them in this order. You could go ahead and do them the way that you like across the board. Okay, so if we did that on the next one, I can show you that. You can just do, well, what's 8 plus negative 3? Again, you're looking at your signs and seeing which one's larger. 8 has a larger absolute value, and it's 5 more than negative 3. It's absolute value of 3. And it's positive. So we have 5, and then plus 15 plus negative 8. And so then you would do, oh, okay, well, 5 plus 15, that's super simple. That's 20 plus negative 8. And 20 has the larger absolute value. Negative 8 has an absolute value of 8. 20 minus 8 is 12. Since 20 has the larger absolute value and it's positive, 12 is also positive. So it is up to you when you go to solve these if you want to use those mathematical properties to move the numbers around, or if you want to just solve from left to right. Either of those rules or any of those things work and apply here. And I will do different ones myself. Depending on the problem, you'll see me solve it differently in class. But all right, we're done with notes, and you can get started on your homework while you're in class.